This week I got the third issue, the final issue of Burn Residue. Burn Residue is a Kickstarter that was written by Jonathan Thompson with art by Rossano Piccioni out of Italy. I liked it. It's a crime noir type of story, and I thought I'd talk about it for a few minutes. Jonathan does some interesting work. He's someone that I've talked back and forth with a bit, has very interesting ideas, and thought this would be a kind of a cool story to go over. So this is issue 1, and when you got issue 1, you got a postcard-sized drawing. This is from David Lapham. Jonathan commissioned David Lapham to do an original art piece for this Kickstarter, and when you back the Kickstarter, you got a certain number of entries into a raffle, and at the end of everything, Jonathan's going to pick one of those entries, and that winner will get this piece of original art from David Lapham, which is sweet enough incentive as it is. So there's a few spoilers here, but I'm not going to spoil the ending. But issue 1 introduces us to Willie Boyd. Willie Boyd is a horribly disfigured person who either owns or works at, definitely works, maybe owns this gas station that's on far from town. And he just spends his day pumping gas or pumping energy charges, because even though nothing else looks futuristic, there's little subtle scenes where he's putting a pump in what you consider the gas cap, and all of a sudden it says charged. So it's almost like a near future, but that's the only thing that you could really tell that would be near future versus today. So one night, this guy comes in and he recognizes this guy. There's 3 people that you introduced to who are your villains. He was involved in the disfigurement of Willie. And then here all of a sudden, and then he tells him to fill up gas. He comes in this car that runs on gasoline, doesn't run on electricity. And he knows there's only one guy in town that has that, and that's Papa Moore, this guy's uncle. And then you have flashbacks. Willie Boyd is a very lucky gambler. And while he's pumping gas, he sees that there's a girl in the back seat with her hands taped behind her and tape over her mouth. He knows that something bad's going to happen to her, but he's like, you know what, I'm just going to let it go. But then he starts thinking about it. He's like, I got to do something. So he starts chasing him. And then while during the chase, you have a flashback sequence where you have that gentleman who came into the gas station. This is Papa Moore, his uncle, and this is Sherry, Papa Moore's girlfriend. And you find out that Papa Moore got out of jail, lost a lot of money to Willie, and then when they got off the cruise, Sherry is hitting on Willie, and there's a setup. And even though Willie offers to give him back the money, Papa Moore, who is really an evil human being, teach him a lesson. They pour gas on him, set him on fire. So eventually he catches up with that nephew. They fight. He kills him. And then he goes in the back of the car, opens the door, takes the tape off the woman's mouth. And once he hears her voice, he realizes it's Sherry, Papa Moore's girlfriend. And he thinks about it. He slams the door shut, takes the gas that was in the trunk, and sets the car on fire. Pretty brutal. Issue 2 is in the aftermath. They really can't tie Willie or anyone to the crime, but Willie's having second thoughts about doing what he did. He feels good. He got some payback, but he's having second doubts. And in this sequence, he starts thinking about how Papa Moore, his rise, and he was a enforcer for the American Yakuza, and eventually he got in jail, went to jail for 8 years. But he starts thinking about how Sherry waited for him, and it kind of humanizes them a little bit, where even though Papa Moore and Sherry are pretty reprehensible human beings, it sort of humanizes them. It doesn't make them good guys or even sympathetic, but it makes them like real human beings. And then it talks about how Papa Moore got out, and his idea was to go on the cruise and get a big score, and Willie Boyd screwed that up. So suddenly, Willie's here, he's drinking, it's a rainy night, he's thinking about it, he sees her face, and he's having second regrets. And he starts going over his hands, and I really like this piece. It's just really effective. This is why I like print, because this really works on a 2-page spread. And he's talking about the blood on his hands, and he starts thinking about what he did. And you feel sorry for him, and then all of a sudden, Papa Moore arrives at the gas station. In part 3, just gonna show you the intro. Willie's here, he's drunk, he's feeling bad for himself, and all of a sudden he hears a voice. And it's Papa Moore. And now Papa Moore knows who Willie is. He suspects Willie, and crap's gonna go down. There's a long, brutal sequence here. I'm not gonna talk about how it ends. If anyone lives, and if so, who lives, what happens, all that. But it's a pretty effective story, because Willie is sympathetic, but he did a horrible thing, like that sort of thing of like an eye for an eye, but he regrets it, because deep down inside he does have still have a bit of a good nature. Papa Moore is just like evil, you know, not mustache evil, like evil, like real evil. So I thought this was a really fun Kickstarter, and I really enjoyed it. Jonathan's got other Kickstarters. He just finished one recently called The Game of Doubles, about tennis, with art by Ryan Tavares. And he's doing one now with called The Killer, with another Italian artist who's doing mixed media work that reminds me of like 80s, 90s, Dave McKeon, Bill Sienkiewicz, that type of thing. So I would look him up. But I really like this Kickstarter. This is a good noir story, and Jonathan does different types of stories, so I'm really looking forward to seeing his other work in the future. And this is pretty good. I don't know if copies are still available. I know that a hardcover graphic novel collection trade collection, is been made for this. I don't know if there's any available. You may want to reach out to him. It's a good story. Very well done. Thanks.